Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. My podcast is called It's Good to Talk. I produced this book. People know me about it. And that's how it all started. A lot of stories and parables by Stoney McGurn from 1941 up to 2 years ago. My sponsor is Ziffy Movers, moving and storage company, and they have been around longer than Jeopardy. My guest today is Ryan Tracy, and he is a PhD student in psychology. Very interesting topic. So let me ask you, Ryan, where were you born? How did you get into this interesting field?
So I was born in Hong Kong, in China, and I got into psychology. It was kind of a long, meandering road because I got to college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I just sat there for a while, and I was close to the halfway through my junior year. And I remembered that the most interesting information I got from any class was from my intros to psychology class. And so I took that as a sign that that's a major that I should go into. And I dove in and I took a lot of different fields, and I landed in social psychology because I was always kind of interested in like how we interact with people and how we form impressions of them just kind of spontaneously and without effort. And that's kind of what led me into the research area that I'm currently in.
Okay. So for the benefit of my listeners that may not know too much about the subject, I mean, I studied a little bit about 100 years ago. So like psychology is the study of the individual, and social psychology is the individual within the group. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So therefore, both are interlinked, really and truly, because I think social psychology is even more important than psychology, because if you're not able to find yourself within a group or the group, whatever you want to call it, then you're kind of on your own. You're out in the cold. So how many years have you been teaching? Or
I've been teaching. I'm in my fourth year of the PhD program. It's a 5 to 6 year program, depending on how long it takes to get your dissertation done. So I did a master's for 2 years, and I'm in my fourth year of the PhD. So I've been doing psychology at the graduate level.
Where are you studying that?
I'm at the City University of New York at the Graduate Center.
Okay, very good. And let's get into more of the psychology stuff and all that. So, like right now, you're teaching psychology or social psychology. Do you see yourself going on to be like a counselor, I guess, yeah?
No, counseling. It's a common question that you get a lot with psychology, is that when you study social psychology, people wonder if you're going to go into counseling, but that's a very different field than what I'm in. So counseling is more of a medical oriented field where you can be either a psychiatrist with an MD or a psychotherapist with a PhD. But both require a lot of hours in actual practice in treating people with psychological ailments.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
So my field is more research based into how people
all right.
interact.
Right. Okay, that's interesting because a couple of months back I had a scientist on here. He was actually from Russia, and he's doing cancer research and something like that. It's like I couldn't say to him, "Well, are you a doctor?" Because he's not. He's a scientist. Okay, so the research is where he's at it in his field. And a couple of the questions that I asked him, actually, I can more or less ask you as well. May not be connected, but would you consider yourself like an optimistic individual yourself?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You have to be in the scientific field.
I was about to say, yeah, you need to be, yeah. And that's when I mentioned about counseling, because so many issues today that a lot of young people have, with dealing with depression and so on and stuff like that. And that's where counseling comes in for that situation, I guess I'm going to say. Not for me, because I'm the opposite to paranoia. I think everybody's out to help me, and then I get a reality check. So you have some more years to do before you go out in the field, I guess, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I've still got dissertation and stuff, so
right.
I'm not a full-fledged.
Right, but at the end of your term, you will be a full-fledged professor, I guess, yeah.
I will be a PhD, so get the PhD tag at the end of my name, and then I will, I could go into the academic track and go be a professor, or I can go into the private sector and conduct research for companies.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm just curious as to what type of the research would it involve, like doing surveys, interviewing people, seeing what makes people tick or doesn't tick, or the personality types maybe is what I'm looking for.
There's a ton of different ways to go about it. So, my research is on how people form first impressions with minimal information about each other. So it's like basically just looking at somebody's face and deciding whether or not that person is attractive, looks trustworthy, looks like they are, a competent individual, and then how people use that information to interact with somebody.
That's interesting. I've been to China a couple of times, and the first time I went there, I was amazed at the Chinese culture, of course. But if I'm sitting in a restaurant and there's a whole Chinese family like staring at me, it's like they're studying my face or something, So I think that's just part of their culture, but it would make you kind of a little nervy. Like, what the hell are they looking at, But that's interesting.
Makes you wonder if you have like food on your face or something.
Yeah, exactly. That could be
it's a spotlight effect.
That could be me too, oftentimes, yeah. So you live in Manhattan, I assume, yeah?
Yes, I do.
That's good. Okay. And how many years have you been here?
I've been in New York 6 years, ever since I started my master's program in 2016. I've been here ever since.
Excellent. The best city in the world, I'd say. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, very good. I'm trying to see what other questions. I guess you did all the basic stuff like Maslow's laws and stuff like that, and the hierarchy of
those are covered in personality psych, intro psych. Yeah. They're kind of like abstract theoretical concepts at this point, and sometimes we interact with them, especially the first level with the social interaction. Like that's probably the one that we start with.
Right. Interesting. I kind of remember that from my study too. And I did consumer psychology, which is what makes people tick, in terms of when they are shopping, for a lady, it might be a pair of shoes or a manicure or get her hair done, something like that. For me, it's to go to the bar and get a pint. Let me see, what other questions should I be asking you? Because I'm trying to brush up my social psychology, yeah. So, and anthropology is the study of cultures, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, so anthropology is kind of the study of like the human species as they have grown and changed over time.
Right. And that's interesting too, because they have changed over time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we still do, and there's a branch of psychology called evolutionary psychology, which is kind of like it's tangential to it. I'm not going to say it's the same thing,
right.
But they incorporate these evolutionary changes and use that as a way to explain some of the behaviors that they find. And some of it is controversial, some of it is theoretical and hard to find from an experimental standpoint, but it provides a lens to view some of the research that we do from. So, going back to like the group behaviors, as you mentioned at the beginning, groups are kind of like central to everything that we do, and they're how we identify ourselves and determine our own identities.
Right.
And, the evolutionary perspective would argue that a lot of the reasons for intergroup rivalry was this competition for resources that existed when human beings were evolving. And, there's some, basal mechanisms in the brain that are still clinging to these ideas that if they get it, we don't. So that kind of explains a lot of it's used to explain a lot of different, intergroup interaction effects that they get. So why some groups are hostile to other groups.
Right. And would you say people that have like narcissistic behavior, like they don't fit into the group, or they above the group, or there's
a couple of interesting perspectives on some of like the narcissism, psychopathy, even some of like the more common psychological disorders or ailments such as depression or anxiety, as that these are all they all served an evolutionary purpose, which is why they're still present in human beings today.
Mm-hmm.
So seasonal affective disorder is a common type of depression, and just to give a quick definition of that. It's when people get kind of depressed in the winter and get kind of, lean a little bit more toward not quite manic, but a little bit more upbeat in the summer. And that was just because, in the winter and early days of the human race, there was, winter was tough for people to survive. So they often just kind of hibernated, lay low and took it easy. Mm. And in the summer, they would just have to go to store resources.
The weather is nice and they're more cheerful,
Yeah.
I had Adam Cardone, he's a medical massage therapist. He was on a couple of months ago as well, and he said that some people come like for a massage to his like clinic or salon, and that there is like a psychological benefit as well as physical benefit or a health benefit, if it's like blood circulation or high blood pressure, whatever else. But there's also the good feel factor about it, that you're being nice to yourself or being kind to yourself. And that was one question I had for him. And the other question I had for Sergey, the cancer scientist, and this was interesting because I'm an atheist, I don't believe, but I met somebody who had a lot of different cancers, an older gentleman. And I asked that gentleman what kept him going, because he was still optimistic and upbeat and all that. And he said, science, the doctors, and God. So I had to ask Sergey, like where God fitted into the picture, you know? And Sergey agreed that, God has a role in the picture if you believe in the God or whatever it is you believe in. That gives you hope, you know? It doesn't work for me, but other things work for me. But I was surprised at Sergey to accept that if people have something that they want to, like a goal, or you want to hang on to something, or you want to see the end of an achievement or something, like say in your career, you want to finish off your 2 or 3 years and get onto another goal, I guess. That'd be correct?
Yeah, I mean, this idea of belief is really interesting. And from a social psychology perspective, we like to look at it as people are not comfortable with the idea of chaos or randomness or entropy. Right. So we like to have, a causal explanation for why things occur. Right. So for a lot of people, like having that higher power to look toward, if they call it God or whatever, like I myself am not a religious person, but if somebody is religious, then, more power to them. Yeah. But people like to have this higher power to look towards, so that they don't get the sense that things just occurred to them and it's, just bad luck. Like, and they want to have something to look forward to and give them hope that, the future is brighter than the present. Yeah. So we like to make sense of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I respect other people's religion, no matter what their religion is, whatever they believe in, good for them. And I hope they pray for me and you. So have you anything else you'd like to add to the discussion, or?
Yeah, I mean, having this faith and having this, power of belief and having this ability to kind of make sense of the world. It's, a lot of people might look at it as a negative thing that human beings do. Like, oh, we're just like gullible, falling for anything. But I think you can look at it in a different way and say, it's actually kind of cool that we have the ability to do that we have the ability to draw connections just so that we can understand the world around us. Now, whether or not those connections are right, that depends on whether or not we're open to incoming new information. But it's kind of an amazing thing that we have this power to just, take this random bit of information and draw connections between it and, come to understand it or put it together in a way that we can understand what's going on. And then as we, grow older and we get more experiences, we refine those connections, we, refine our conclusions that we draw and form a more coherent picture. But I think that's one of the most amazing things about the human brain and the human mind is that it has the capacity to do that while still allowing us to survive and function and get through every single day.
Yeah. And that was another question I had for my scientist friend. Like at the end of the day, you switch off and what's your hobbies and stuff like that. And he likes to sing. So he actually sang a song for me by Bono, Bono U2.
Yeah, I watched that episode. Yeah, he's very talented.
Talented guy. So Bono or Sergey?
Both. Obviously, I mean, Bono's obviously talented. He's just multi-billion records.
Sergey is still learning how to play guitar, but he did sing songs. He's still trying to find what he's looking for. So how do you wrap up your day at the end of the day? Do you shoot pool or do you
depending on what the day is, you might find me at the bar, you might find me at home cooking, tired. I'm very physically active. I like to work out every day. If I don't get it in the morning, then it's a good way to kind of close out the day and signal that the day is at an end.
Excellent.
So things like that, running.
So my guest today is Ryan Tracy. He's a PhD psychology student and professor soon to be, talking all about psychology and social psychology. And if you like this episode, hit the like button and tune into some of the other podcasts that I did as well. So I'll leave the final word to you.
Well, John, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure just talking about, what I do and what psychology is. And hopefully people watch this and take something away, and maybe, a budding interest in the field is born in somebody and they become the next great, social psychologist in New York City.
And, my podcast is called It's Good to Talk. And it is good to talk. And that's why I say to people like that maybe are depressed and that, like share your thoughts with people. Like, don't be in isolation, There's help out there.
It's good to talk in person.
Yeah.
It's good to talk to in real time instead of,
absolutely.
Social mediated, like social media kind of.
Yeah,
speaking.
I agree.
I think it's good to actually have a conversation.
All right. So I'm going to sign off soon, and you must never be fearful about what you're doing when it's right. That's a quotation from Rosa Parks.